Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani. Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 nutrients that I see with patients that have gut dysfunction. There's definitely a pattern. I'm going to be going over what I'm seeing in some different ways that you can clinically assess and work on supporting some of these nutrients. If you don't have any problems at all, I want to see your comments down below. Either way, let me know what's working for you or what's not. I'll be responding personally. And again, we're going to be talking about root causes to these issues. I want to really focus on how we got here and what we can do to actually fix it. All right, so let's dive in before we do. So, out of the gate, we have chronic gut dysfunction. This could be from an infection like H. pylori, fungal overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, or just generalized dysbiosis or SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You could have a parasite. You could have C. diff. You could have a foodborne illness like Campylobacter, E. coli, or Salmonella. It could also be things like food allergies, right? Food allergies can be very, subtle. It could be just a lot of fructose and a lot of processed grains and flour that create and feed dysbiosis. Maybe it's a little bit of stress in your life, and then that's causing more cortisol and adrenaline. That's lowering your stomach acid levels, lowering enzyme levels. Now you're not able to break down the food. Now there's more fermentation, rancidification in the gut. These could all be big players in why you're having gut dysfunction. Bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, maybe it's GERD, acid reflux. Also, it could just be brain fog. It could be mood issues. A lot of times with gut issues, you could see things out. They call it extra intestinal. That means brain, mood, focus, cognitive, brain fog, where you're just not fast with your words. You're not, quick on your feet, right? You're noticing that slow kind of response time, slow processing time. We want to be quick. So the gut can play a big role with that. Now, when we first have issues, if we don't have enough enzymes or acids, we're not going to be able to ionize, which means the acidity basically adds electrons to these compounds, and then which makes them more soluble so we can absorb them. We also need enzymes to be able to break down the proteins. With these big proteins, we have to break down these. Think of proteins as like a big pearl necklace. We have to rip each individual pearl off the necklace. Now we take these proteins and we turn them into amino acids or protein like peptides, if you will, right? And now we can absorb and assimilate them better. And so there's a pattern, right? So first off, what we'll see is protein dysfunction, low protein. We're not breaking down our protein. Some of the big proteins that we'll see are going to be in the tryptophan and dopamine tyrosine camp. So when I see chronic gut issues, there's going to be sleep and mood issues and cognitive focus issues. So we'll see tryptophan or 5-HTP as a metabolite of tryptophan. That's 5-hydroxytryptophan. So it goes tryptophan, 5-HTP, serotonin, then melatonin. Of course, there's nutrients to make that conversion like B6 and vitamin C and calcium, and then B vitamins like folate and B12. So we know that that's important for sleep. So if we're having sleep issues, we want to look at the tryptophan, the 5-HTP/serotonin chain. That's really important. Of course, I also look at those cofactors too, because when we're stressed and inflamed, we burn up B vitamins. We burn up B6, folate, B9 is folate as well, B12, make sure it's methylated. B6 is an important cofactor. So when we have these amino acids, we also want to look at the cofactor. Next would be things on the dopamine side. Dopamine's going to be like tyrosine. It goes phenylalanine to tyrosine, tyrosine to L-DOPA, L-DOPA to dopamine, and then dopamine, it can go to epinephrine, norepinephrine. And those are going to be more of your adrenaline stress hormones. That's why when you're chronically stressed, you will literally pull those amino acids from one side, being phenylalanine, tyrosine, all the way through to dopamine, which is important for focus and cognitive and being sharp. And then now you're creating more stress hormones. So you can actually, over time, cause more depletion in dopamine because you're frittering it away, making more adrenaline and stress hormones. That's a big deal. So we really want to be on top of that. So I'll put 5-HTP serotonin on one, dopamine on the other for your dopamine and focus. Third, magnesium is vitally important when we eat lots of processed food. So if we have a lot of gut dysfunction, we're probably eating a lot of sugar, flours. Again, flours and sugar all metabolize down into glucose, or it's coming from sucrose, which is going to be fructose and glucose, right? But sucrose is table sugar. And so either way, that's going to cause our Krebs cycle, right? Citric acid cycle to convert and to churn that NADH and FADH2 around, right? 3 each time. So 3 NADHs to 1 FADH2. So it goes around 2 cycles when we put that glucose in. And that means we're going to get 6 NADHs and 2 FADH2s. And that requires B vitamins. It requires magnesium. It requires nutrients to churn that Krebs cycle around. We'll put a good Krebs cycle image on screen. We'll get one with all the nutrients. So you can see the nutrients that come in along the different pathways, whether we go from citrate to isocitrate, you'll see the B vitamins and the amino acids that are involved. Magnesium is involved. And so when you get stressed, you will use up magnesium. Magnesium is really important for relaxation. It's a natural beta blocker. So if your blood pressure goes high, it relaxes that calcium receptor site on the heart that stimulates contraction. So it relaxes that. It also vasodilates. It opens up blood vessels. It's also very anti-inflammatory on neurological tissue. People that have gut dysfunction, I'll have them go get a nice thing of Epsom salts on Amazon in bulk, like USP. So it's like a really top grade Epsom salts. I'll put a link down below in the comments or in the description, and we'll just have them do 1 to 2 cups. We'll have them do nice hot water, just cover up the full foot and ankle bone. Let your feet sit for like 15, 20 minutes till your water starts to get cold. That starts to improve the magnesium sulfate going into your bloodstream transdermally. So if you have gut dysfunction, that can really help. Or we'll get like my magnesium supreme, which is like a good magnesium glycinate or a dimalate. Malate's wonderful because it fits into the Krebs cycle nicely. So it can actually be very helpful for Krebs cycle mitochondrial function. But glycinate is also great because it's very well absorbed, very helpful for relaxation, for blood pressure. And if someone's really jacked up, meaning with brain inflammation, we'll give a magnesium threonate, which is an MIT essentially chelate technology from a few years back, where that really crosses the blood-brain barrier well. There's some other brands like aspartate are good. Citrate's a little bit cheaper, not necessarily bad, but just cheaper. I'll always go with a glycinate or malate over that, but not bad if you have it in like a natural calm form. And then we'll use it maybe in a ozonated or a hydroxy form for motility as well. So we have magnesium, we have our 2 amino acids. Zinc's vitally important, plays a really important cofactor with a lot of our sex hormones. You can also see what are called zinc fingers. These are epigenetic triggers that impact our genetics, and we need zinc to have good, healthy epigenetic function. So think of essentially genetics are like the switch on the wall. So that switch right there, right? The epigenetics are literally me flicking that switch. So you may have the switch, but the epigenetics are essentially what turns that switch off or on. And these are going to be the different nutrients, the stressors, poor sleep, right? You could have a great diet, but if you're not sleeping at all, you'll see your blood sugar, you'll test it on your blood sugar meter, and you'll start to see you're becoming insulin resistant just because of sleep. Not even because you're eating too much sugar, not even because you're sedentary. And so this is why epigenetics play a big, big role. So we want to look at all the stressors that we have in control that impact our epigenetics. Of course, nutrient density, toxicity, managing our blood sugar, sleep, movement, hydration, making sure all of our toxicity is low, exposure to mold or heavy metals all play a big role. Mitigating medications, because a lot of medications will actually create nutrient deficiencies. So these are all big things. So now we add zinc. Let's throw in selenium next. I love selenium. My thyroid book's coming out very soon. Selenium is a really important cofactor for the 5-deiodinase enzyme that helps convert T4 to T3 in the thyroid. Selenium is also vitally important for taking the iodination process where we make thyroid hormone. When we spit a bunch of iodine in there, we'll get a hydrogen peroxide coming out at the back end. Hydrogen peroxide topically, could be good, but internally, it's very inflammatory. It can cause more B cells, more immune cells to come in from the immune response and start attacking the thyroid. And you can see antibodies increase, TPO, thyroglobulin antibodies. And so selenium actually takes that hydrogen peroxide, which is H2O2. It cleaves off of water. Now we're left with H2O. So that's really important. So we have H2O. So it makes it more neutral, benign. Now we have water, non-inflammatory. So that's powerful. So if we have Hashimoto's or autoimmune issues, we want to decrease that inflammation, which can really help lessen the antibodies and lessen that Hashimoto's attack. So selenium is very powerful. Also, the enzymes to help with that thyroid actually are in the liver, right? So we want to have good, healthy selenium because that's also a cofactor for recycling glutathione. Glutathione is very important. It's that master antioxidant. Now, I went through 5. So we went through dopamine, serotonin, went through magnesium, went through zinc, went through selenium. I'm going to give you guys a bonus. I'm going to over deliver here for you guys. The next one will be N-acetylcysteine or cysteine. We talked about glutathione and how important selenium is as a cofactor for recycling. Guess what? Cysteine is the major root, I would say. It's the major rate limiting cofactor, meaning if we don't get enough cysteine, we're not going to be able to make glutathione. Now, why is that? Glutathione is a tripeptide. So we have glutamine, glycine, and cysteine. Glutamine you get from muscle meat. See here, glycine you can get in collagen or bone broth, right? Still, that could be a little bit lower. So usually muscle meat's the first, easiest. Glycine's the second, right? It's still, if you're on collagen, that'll help. And third is cysteine. That's the hardest. And so we do N-acetylcysteine, which is great, cost effective. I like it because it's the rate limiting one. Also, if you're used to taking glutathione, most of it can't be absorbed. If you take a good product like a reduced glutathione, a liposomal, or an acetylated, that's better. It's going to get absorbed better. I like that. I'll still use those products, but the issue with glutathione is it typically cannot cross the blood-brain barrier well. So that's why if we give it, we want to give it with NAC because NAC can cross the blood-brain barrier and then convert to glutathione in the brain. So that can help with detoxification, oxidative stress, and brain inflammation. So it's good to be on top of that. So NAC will be the next one because it's a powerful amino acid. And amino acids require what? Enzymes. Requires acid to be able to break down all those proteolytic, all those proteins with those good proteolytic enzymes and break those amino acids down into peptide form so we can absorb it well. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, we have serotonin, we have dopamine, we have magnesium, we have zinc, we have selenium, and we have our bonus, which is going to be our cysteine today. Now, from a root cause perspective, we can test some of these either like blood. We can run a red blood cell magnesium. We can run an organic acids to look. We can run some intracellular tests using either a NutriEval or metabolomics. These can be good tests. There are some RBC nutrients like on your typical Quest that you could do to look at it as well. And then just look at your gut. Like if you have H. pylori, if you have gastritis, if you're not going number 2 and pooping regularly, if you have chronic gas and bloat, you probably have some malabsorption and you may need to add some HCl, add some enzymes. We may have some infections that are holding you back. Or if you're just chronically stressed, you're activating that fight or flight response, which is going to lower your stomach acid and enzymes because the resources are going to your arms to fight and flee away from your stomach. Parasympathetic, that's the vagus nerve. That brings everything back inside. So we have the digestive juices to be able to absorb and break down nutrients. So hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, put your comments down below. Love to see it. Let me know what nutrient you think you're the most deficient in. And again, we can do testing for nutrients, but if the gut is the big barrier upstream, that's going to be the highest point we want to look at. All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, let me know. If you want to dive in deeper on the functional medicine side, I see patients all over the world. If you want to dive in, we can do testing. We can look, we can see where you're at and figure out the next steps to kind of get to the root cause on your specific barriers to healing. All right, guys, Dr. J here signing